Hello, Nitin. If I am audible and if I am visible, if this my screen is visible, please text me. So confirm me through a text message. Okay, then let us start. So in the previous sessions, we have seen some fundamentals to begin programming in C language. So as we discussed earlier, we are going to start using variables and data types in C program today, right? So already I told you what is a data type, right? So data type is an entity in C program or any other programming language which allows you to specify the type of a value that can be stored in a variable. Okay, so that is nothing but a data type. So C provides you with many different data types. For example, broadly we can or primarily we can classify the data types to integers, floating point, character type, data types. But coming to integers, then there are further short int. Next one is int. Then you have long int. And coming to floating point, you have float, double, and then long double. And then coming to character, single character and group of character, which is nothing but string, or we can call it as a character array. String is nothing but a character array. So you can call these as short integer, long integer, uh, short integer, long integer, and floating point integer, which is called as simply float. And we can put all these float, double, long double under a single floating point uh, category, and all the short int and long int under integers category. All these are integer values only, but the size of these variables declared with this data type will be varying. Even characters are also they can be of two types: a single character or a group of characters together. We call it as a string, and we also call it as a character array in C programming. So before going to use these data types in our program, let me tell you about something called keywords. What are keywords means? Keywords are special words in language that have purpose. They have a specific purpose and they must be used only for that purpose. They cannot be used for any other purpose other than what they are meant. Right? What is the meaning of this one? Keywords are some kinds of words. They look like English words only, but they have a specific purpose. Each keyword will have a specific purpose, and we have to use that a keyword only for that particular purpose. You cannot use that keyword for something else, some other purpose in your program. What do you mean by that specific purpose? Let us take a general example. So what do we do with a mobile phone? The specific purpose of mobile phone is for communication. That communication can be either voice communication, text message communication, or audio call or video call, all these things, right? So basically it is for communication purpose, right? And we can watch videos and all also in that mobile phone. But can we use that mobile phone or a smartphone as a computer, which executes programs like C language programs and Java programs and all? We cannot use it, right? So just like a mobile phone is used for a specific purpose, and it cannot be used for some other purpose than which is meant for. It is meant for making calls, text messages, video calls, and watch some videos and browse internet and all this. So other than that, can we use it as something else like a laptop or a computer where we can install a Java software and C software and run C programs and Java programs? We cannot do it, right? So in that way, in this real world, every object has some purpose for it. We must use that object only for that purpose. We cannot use it for something else, right? So can we use? We can use a water bottle to hold some water content in. But similarly, can we use a paper bag to hold water in it, or a cloth to hold water in it? No, cannot do that, right? So cloth has separate purpose, specific purpose, and it will be used only for that purpose. And water bottle has some purpose, and we have to use it only for that purpose. We cannot use it for something else. In the same way, in this C programming language, keywords, there are something called keywords, and each keyword, not all the keywords together, every single keyword will have a specific purpose, and we have to use that keyword only for that purpose. So now, why I'm discussing about these keywords is we have some set of keywords in C programming. Already we have mentioned that short is one keyword, int is another keyword, long is another keyword, float is another keyword, double is another keyword, char is another keyword. So these are all examples of keywords. And what is their purpose? What is the purpose of short integer? It is used to declare a variable of type short integer. Right? Similarly, int has uh, purpose is to declare a variable of normal integer. Right? Long int has a purpose. Instead of using long int, we can only simply use long like this. So using both short and int, we can use only short. Keyword short is sufficient. If you say short, it is nothing but short integer. When you say simply integer, it is integer. When you say long, it is a long integer. Right? And when you say float, it is a simple floating point by its size. A double is double, long double is different. For long double, we have to use both long and double because if you use only long, it will be considered as an integer, long integer. So for long double, we have to use both the words long and double together by giving some space between long and double. That way, the keywords have that purpose. So here, uh, double keyword is used to declare variables of double type. Float keyword is used to declare variables of float type. Similarly, short keyword is used to create a variable of short integer type, and long keyword is used for creating a variable of long integer type. And we cannot use this long keyword for something else, for other purpose. That's why we say keywords are special words in language that have specific purpose. They cannot be used for any other purpose other than what they are meant for. అవి దేనికోసం అయితే మనం చేస్తున్నామో వాటికి తప్పితే వేరే పర్పస్కి మనం వాడకూడదు. వాటికి ఒక పర్పస్ ఉంది. ఆ పర్పస్ని దాటి వేరే దానికోసం మనం యూజ్ చేయకూడదు. Right? So C will not allow you to do so. So now that you understood what is a keyword, let us go into the data types further. What is the difference between short, what is int, and long? So generally, short integer, integer, and long integer, all these three are basically integers only. They are used to create variables of integer type only. But the difference between the short integers, normal integer, and long integer is the size or the amount of space they occupy in computer's memory. Okay? So a short, I'm putting it in single quote to highlight it. A short occupies how much space? One byte of memory. One byte means 8 bits, right? So you know how one byte is equal to 8 bits, right? So similarly, a int, use the keyword int and declare a variable or create a variable as integer. Then that variable will occupy how much amount of space in memory? It will occupy 2 bytes of, right? Similarly, long long means long or long integer. Both mean same. Twice 4 bytes of memory. That is the difference between short, int, and long data types. Okay. Basically, they are integer values only. Their size, the amount of space they occupy in the memory is different. For a short integer, it will occupy only 1 byte of memory. For a normal integer, it will occupy 2 bytes of memory. And a long integer will occupy 4 bytes of memory. Right. So, what is the difference between the size? Why we should consider the size as an important thing is, you know, the computer will store data in terms of binary representation only, right? So how is data stored in your computer's memory? In terms of zeros and ones. That means whatever value you give or whatever value you type on the keyboard, even though it is an alphabetical or any other special symbols, they'll be stored in the computer's memory in terms of zeros and ones. So how will the computer store these data that we give as input from the keyboard in terms of zeros and ones? Every alphabet or every key that you type on your keyboard will have an ASCII code. So you know about ASCII code, right? American Standard Code for Information. So this ASCII code has actually 8 bits representation. So you know, in binary representation, you can represent uh, which, if you have say two binary digits, you have say two binary digits, then you can represent using those two binary digits how many combinations, how many different values you can represent. You have 0 0 0 is one representation. You can have 0 1 and 1 0 1 1. So using two binary digits, how many different combinations you can have? Four different combinations, right? So you can have both zero zeros. First is 0 and second is 1, and then first is 1 and second is 0, and both are 1s. So that way you can get four different combinations using two binary digits. So what is the meaning of this? If you have 2 bits, then you can have 2 power 2, 2 power 2 different combinations. I'm writing 2 OW 2, or I'll say completely write 2 power 2, which means 2 power 2. You know, in mathematics, 2 power 2 or 2 square. Right? So, if the where this 2 is nothing but the number of bits in the binary representation. How many bits are there in every representation? 2 bits. If there are 3 bits, then 2 power 3 will become what is equal to 8 combinations, 8 different combinations. There are 2 bit binary digits, then you will have 2 power 2 is equal to 4, right? Similarly, 2 power 3 is equal to how much? 8 combinations, right? If it is 2 power 4, then how many combinations? You get 16 combinations, right? Similarly, 2 power 5 is how many combinations you get? 32. So you know 2 power n value, right? If n value is 1, then 2 power 1 is 2. If n value is 2, 2 power 2 is 4. If n value is 3, 2 power 3 is 8. If n value is 4, 2 power 4 is 16. Similarly, 2 power 5 is 32. 2 power 6 is 64, right? So, what is this 2 power n? N is nothing but the number of bits, number of binary bits used for representing a number. So in case of 2 binary digits, we have 4 combinations. In case of 3 binary digits, we have 8 different combinations. In case of 4 binary digits, you will get 16 different combinations. In case of 5, you will get 32. So in that way, as you increase the power size, the number of combinations will get double. So when it is 2, it was 4, right? And when 2 is increased by 1 to 3, then the total number of combinations got doubled to 8. From 4, it is doubled to 8. Similarly, from 8, it is doubled to 16 by increasing 3 with 1 to become 4. Right? So as you increase the power by one value, the number of combinations that you are going to get will be doubled than the previous one, right? అంతకుముందు మనం యూజ్ చేసిన పవర్ 4 కంటే ఒకటి ఇంక్రిమెంట్ చేసి 5 చేస్తే ఇంకా కాంబినేషన్ 16 అయితే ఇప్పుడు దానికి డబుల్ గా 32 వస్తుంది. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద మీనింగ్ ఐ వాంట్ టు సే, రైట్? సో if that is the case, and when we say a short integer occupies 1 byte, 1 byte is equal to how many bits? 8 bits. That means you'll have 2 power 8 combinations. You get 2 power 8 combinations. What is 2 power 8? Power 8 is how much? Power 5 is 32. 2 power 6 is 64. 2 power 7 is 128. 2 power 8 is 256. Right? Similarly, imagine if an integer occupies 2 bytes. 2 bytes means how much? 16 bits. So 16 bits means how much? 2 power 16, right? So 2 power 16 is how much? 55,536, which will be the uh, value of 2 power 16, right? So in that way, if the size of the memory, if the size of a variable that we are storing value is specified as 1 byte or 2 bytes based on the data type of the variable. If a variable is declared as short variable, short integer variable, then how much memory will be allocated to that variable? It will be allocated 1 byte. 1 byte means 8 bits. So, what are the possible integer values that you can store in that 1 byte of memory? Is 2 power 8 is 256, right? So you can store 256 different integer values. So when you say 256 different integer values, when you combine both negative and positive values, so that will become how much? Minus 128 to 0. So that is half. And then from minus 128 to minus 1 plus 1 to 0 to 127. So altogether we'll have 256 different combinations. 128 negative combinations from minus 128 to minus 1. And from 0 to 127, totally you'll have another 128 combinations, positive values. So altogether, how many? It will be 256 different binary combinations. So What is this minus 128 plus 127? This is nothing but the range of values. If you declare a variable or if you create a variable in your C program, its data type as short integer, right? And an integer can be a negative value as well as a positive value, right? That is the reason, because it occupies 1 byte. That 1 byte is nothing but 2 power 8 combinations you are going to get. So totally 256 different combinations you are going to get. So your C compiler will allow you to store these range of values for that variable. So now, if I create a variable like this short a like this in my program, if I create a variable short a in my program, then what is the meaning of this? The variable a, its data type is short integer. So how much amount of space it will be allocated? It will be allocated 1 byte of memory. Because it is short, it will be allocated 1 byte of memory. 1 byte of memory is nothing but 8 bits of memory. So the 8 bits will get 2 power 8 combinations. That is 256. So in that variable, for this variable a, I can assign values from minus 128 to plus 127. Right? And when you say 2 power 16, that means if you declare a variable like int, say some b like this, then because we have declared this variable b as int variable, integer variable, so integer will be occupying how many bytes? 2 bytes. 2 bytes means 16 bits. What is 2 power 16? 65,536. So when you uh, when you divide the 65,536 combinations into two halves, accommodating both negative values and positive values, then you will have minus from minus 32,768 to you will have 32,767. Totally 5,536 combinations. Okay. So minus 32,768 to minus 1 half, and from 0 to 32,768 another half. So total together 32,768 into 2, right, will become 65,536. So that is, this is the range of integers. This will be the range of integers. In that way, if you understand this logic behind that size of variables and range of data types in C programming, you can obtain automatically your own range. You need not remember this one. నువ్వు గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు, బట్టి కొట్టాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. నీకు ఈ లాజిక్ అర్థమైందంటే ఆటోమేటిక్గా దాని సైజుని బట్టి, ఇఫ్ యూ జస్ట్ రిమెంబర్ ది సైజ్ ఆఫ్ ది డేటా టైప్ వేరియబుల్, ఆటోమేటిక్గా నీకే అర్థమవుతుంది. ఓకే. సో లాంగ్ అంటే 4 bytes. 4 bytes అంటే ఏంటి? 2 power 4. 4 అంటే సారీ 2 power 32. 2 power 32 అంటే ఎంత ఉంటుంది? యూ కెన్ ఇమాజిన్, చాలా వెరీ లార్జ్ నెంబర్. You can compute that 2 power 32 and then exactly divide it into two halves. One half for negative numbers and the remaining half for 0 and the positive numbers. Right? So you'll get that range. So I'm not going to discuss about this range of all these data types, but because it will be difficult for us to compute the 2 power 16 values manually. So 2 power 16, up to 2 power 16 I can compute, but beyond that, if I have to compute, you can imagine, if I make the 16 as 17, then this will be double. 65,536 will be multiplied by 2. So that is what 1 lakh 30,000 change, 31,000 will get. And again, if I increment it to 18, so that 1 lakh 31,000 will be again double, 2 lakh 62,000. So by incrementing by one uh, value of the power exponent, the previous value will be doubled. So if I have to do it for 16 more times, you can imagine what will be the number, how large it will be, right? So need not discuss much about this range of values, but you need to understand that when you create a variable in your program with its data type mentioned like this, uh, you should know how many bytes it is going to occupy. So as I mentioned, for int it occupies for short it occupies 1 byte, for int it occupies 2 bytes. Similarly, coming to float occupies 4 bytes, same as a long integer, right? And double occupies 8 bytes. Long double occupies 10 bytes. Okay? Float occupies 4 bytes, double occupies 8 bytes, long double occupies 10 bytes. 4 bytes means 4 into 8, 32 bits. 8 bytes means 8 into 8, 8 8 are 64 bits. 10 bytes means 10 into 8, 80 bits. Okay. And coming to the char occupies 1 byte. Right. So just like short integer, how many bytes it will occupy? Character occupies 1 byte of memory. And you can strings will occupy as many bits as you want, right? For example, we cannot exactly mention how many bytes of memory a string will occupy. If I declare a array of size, a char, say a name of 20, like this, 20 numbers, because this array will store 20 different characters. Each character will occupy how many bytes? 1 byte, right? So if 20 characters are stored, then 20 into 1 byte is equal to 20. So we cannot exactly say how many bytes a string will occupy. It depends upon the size of that string, how many characters we are storing in that string. That many bytes it is going to occupy. So uh, there is no fixed value for a string. Right? It varies. The size of a string varies depending on the number of characters that you are going to store in the string. But if you are creating a single character, the single character each character will occupy 1 byte of memory, right? So this is about the data types in primary data types in C programming. You have character data type which occupies 1 byte. You can create from the same character data type. You can create strings also. So strings will occupy as many bytes as there are characters in that string. And coming to integers, integers are again classified into 3 types: short integer, and long integer. Short integer, which is simply called as short, will occupy 1 byte. Integer will occupy 2 bytes. Long integer will occupy 4 bytes. And floating point numbers are classified into further 3 categories: float, double, and long double. Right? So float will occupy 4 bytes of memory, double will occupy 8 bytes of memory, long double will occupy 10 bytes of memory. So now that you understood the memory, how much amount of memory space or different types of variables occupy in computers memory, let us start writing programs using these variables and all. Okay. So how to declare variables? How to declare variables? Before declaring variables, we need to know some of the rules that we need to follow for naming the variables. So we are going to choose a name for a variable, right? When we write a program, and when you want to create a variable in your program, that is creating means declaring the variables. Okay. So how will you choose that name, right? So rules to be followed for naming variables. So first one is variable name must not be keyword, right? So you cannot use any keyword which is part of C programming language as a name for a variable. మనం వేరియబుల్ డిక్లేర్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఏమని డిక్లేర్ చేస్తాము? ఇంట్ ఏ, ఇంట్ బి, లైక్ దిస్ లాగా ఒక నేమ్ ఇస్తాం, ఏ బి సి డి అని కదా. సో అట్లా ఏబిసిడి బదులు ఇంకేమైనా ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ సమ్ అని ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు, టోటల్ అని ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు, యావరేజ్ అని ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు, వేరియబుల్ నేమ్స్ ఇస్తాం కదా. సో వెన్ యూఆర్ గివింగ్ నేమ్స్ ఫర్ దోస్ వేరియబుల్స్ ఇన్ దట్ వే, you should you must see that the names of that name that is chosen for a variable is not a keyword. There are 32 different keywords in C programming language. I'll give you the list, or మీకు పంపించిన పీడిఎఫ్ ఉంది కదా, లేటెస్ట్ పీడిఎఫ్ డాక్యుమెంట్, దాంట్లో ఆ లిస్ట్ ఆఫ్ కీవర్డ్స్ అన్ని డిస్ప్లే చేసి ఉంటాయి, చూసుకోండి. రైట్, అది రిఫర్ చేసుకో. సో అదర్ దాన్ దట్ 32 keywords you can give any name. 32 keywords కాకుండా వేరే నేమ్స్ ఏదైనా ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు. So this is the first and foremost important rule that you need to follow when you are creating a variable and giving a name for it. Right? And second rule is a variable must begin a letter. Means what? A letter means alphabet. It means alphabet. Okay? So what is the meaning of this one? You can create a variable as a1, a2, a3 అట్లా కూడా క్రియేట్ చేయొచ్చు. న్యూమరికల్ డిజిట్ కూడా వేరియబుల్ నేమ్ యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు. సో I can use, for example, a1 అని ఒక వేరియబుల్ క్రియేట్ చేస్తాను, a2, a3, like this I can create how many variables I want. I can create the variables. So if you observe this variable name, this is a combination of an alphabet and numerical digit. Alphabet a and numerical digit 1, right? So when you want to combine alphabets and numeric digits, you can use both of these, alphabets and numerical. You are permitted to use, but beginning you must have only alphabet. You cannot write it as instead of a1, you cannot write it as 1a. Write like this 1a, it is not, it will not be accepted. C compiler will generate an error. So you need to follow the rule, right? So when I'm saying the rules, these are rules are nothing but semantics. Semantics అంటే ఏంటో చెప్పాను కదా. ప్రతి ప్రోగ్రామింగ్ లాంగ్వేజ్ కి సింటాక్స్ అండ్ సెమాంటిక్స్. Every programming language will have syntax and semantics, right? So semantics are nothing but set of rules. So among those semantics, I am now telling you about the semantics for naming variables. Okay. So 1a అని ఇవ్వకూడదు, a1 అని ఇవ్వచ్చు. You can give as a1, but you cannot give as 1a. Right. Now variable name must begin with a letter, so that is a second rule. Then also special symbols other than underscore are not allowed. Special symbols other than underscore are not allowed. Okay. So what is the meaning of it? I can use, for example, to create a variable as like avg underscore marks, which stands for average marks, right? So instead of this underscore, if I want to use a hyphen like this, so this hyphen or minus symbol is not permitted. So any other symbols other than underscore are not permitted in the name of a variable. So when you're giving a name for variables, no special symbols are allowed except underscore. Okay? And then coming to the next one, fourth one, no white spaces. No white spaces are allowed. So no white spaces are allowed means what? Example, the average marks. Average marks అనే వేరియబుల్ avg space marks అని ఇస్తే this is a invalid variable. avg అనే వర్డ్ కి మార్క్స్ అనే వర్డ్ కి మధ్యలో ఈ గ్యాప్ వైట్ స్పేస్ అనేది ఉండకూడదు, రైట్? సో వైట్ స్పేస్ is not allowed in between the name of a variable means what? between one letter and the other letter of a variable name, there should not be any white space. This is invalid variable name. So either you have to remove the space like this, or you have to use an underscore symbol like this. But you cannot leave it blank like this. Blank spaces and white spaces, right? So this is invalid. You cannot use. Okay. Then variable names are case sensitive or is case sensitive language. వేరియబుల్ నేమ్స్ ఆర్ కేస్ సెన్సిటివ్ అంటే ఏంటి? ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నేను డిక్లేర్ చేసేటప్పుడు వేరియబుల్ని ఇంట్ స్మాల్ లెటర్ ఏ అని డిక్లేర్ చేశాను. తర్వాత ఏ ఏ కమా బి కమా సి అని డిక్లేర్ చేశాను. దీన్ని సి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు ప్లస్ బి అని ఇట్లా రాయాలి స్టేట్మెంట్ తర్వాత. ఏ బదులు క్యాపిటల్ ఏ పెట్టాను అనుకో, అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది? A will be considered as a different variable. This will be different. This will be considered as different variable because this is small letter a and this is capital A. So both these A's will not be considered as same. They will be considered as different. So when any programming language considers them like this, the lowercase and uppercase as different entities, such languages are called as case-sensitive programming languages. Right? So because C programming language is case sensitive language, when you are using variable names, you must follow that case sensitive. Okay, so these are the rules that you need to follow. You must follow, not need. ఎప్పుడైనా ఇవి ఫాలో అవ్వాల్సిందే వేరియబుల్ డిక్లరేషన్. So you need to follow, you must follow these rules when you are giving a name for a variable. So now that you understood how to give names for variables, right? And you know some of the keywords that are used for creating variables and specifying the data type of the variable. So let us now start writing a simple C program. As I told you, void main. What is main and void? C program will have functions, and every C program will contain at least one function. If there is only one function in your C program, that must be the main function. Okay? And the return type for this main function, some compilers they'll use integer, some compilers will use void, right? So if int is used here, that value that you are going to return will be returned to the operating system. Void is used, you need not return any value. So let us discuss about this return type and return values a little later after writing some basic programs. Get used to this writing programs using this main function. Then after that we can start writing the complex programs, and then we'll discuss about what is return type, what is parameter, and all those things. As of now, we have to use only one function in our program, that is main function. We are not going to define any other functions when you are writing simple C programs. Right? Small, very small C programs, they do not require other functions. Only predefined functions like printf and scanf are used, but they are only called. We are not going to define any other functions other than the main function. Okay? So first, how to write this program, simple C program. As I told you, the structure of C program yesterday, uh, above the main function, you have a global declaration section, right? But within the main function, your main function will have at the beginning local declaration, right? It's called as local declaration. So, what is this local declaration means? You can declare variables like this. Put it in comment. Then I'm declaring program variables like a comma b comma c. What is this called as? This is called as local declaration. So I'll put it here. Beside that line, I'm writing this comment, local declaration. So every function, you can create as many functions as you want in your program, other than main function. Like this way, you can create any other function below this function here, right? So which is called a subprogram section. In subprogram section, you can create your own functions other than main functions. So in any function, if at all, if you want to declare variables and use them in that function, you can declare them either inside that function as the first statement, or you can declare above the main function here, which is called as global declaration section. So variables can be declared in two different places. First place is global declaration and second place is local declaration. I'll mention here variables must be declared before they are used in the program. Before we start using variables in our program, we must declare those variables. Okay. Then where to declare these variables? Variables can be declared in different places. Yeah. So the first is global declaration section. Second is local declaration. So if it is global declaration section, yesterday I told you what is global. We were discussing about six different sections a C program can have, right? So at the top you have documentation section, and then you have below that link section. After link section, you have definition section. After definition, you have global declaration section, and below global declaration section, you will have the main section, which is nothing but the main function, and below main section you have subprogram section, right? So when you want to create a variable or declare a variable, the variable can be either declared in the global declaration section above the main function in the program, or you can declare it within that main function or any other function, which is called as local declaration. So now if I declare this int a comma b comma c inside the body of the main function or any other function, in this case we are defining only one function, that is main function in our program. So we have to declare it as a first statement. ఈ వేరియబుల్ డిక్లరేషన్ కంటే ముందు వేరే అదర్ స్టేట్మెంట్స్ ఏమి రాయకూడదు, right? So only after declaring variables in the program, then only you have to start writing other statements in your program. So you know what is a statement? Every statement in a C program ends with a semicolon. Because here I used a semicolon, now even this line which is ending with semicolon is also a statement. But what is the statement doing? It is simply declaring three integer variables a comma b comma c. Okay. So this statement can be called as declaration statement. It is called as a declaration statement, or you can also mention as local declaration statement. Okay. So once you completed declaring variables, then you can write other statements. So other statement in the sense, I can assign a with a value called 10 like this, one the statement, b with say 20 like this, another statement. Then after that I'll compute the value c is equal to a plus b. So why I have to write a is equal to 10 first, b is equal to 20 last, c is equal to a plus b last. Why? Because only when I assign a value for a and b, then only I can compute their sum and store it in C. If I write the c is equal to a plus b before this a is equal to 10 and b is equal to 20 here, you'll get an error, because without knowing the value of a and b, how can you calculate the sum of a and b and store it in C? You cannot do that, right? So writing here will generate an error for you. The compiler will check when a variable is used. First, it will check whether it is declared or not. If it is declared, then it will accept to write the statement. But when you write this statement, it will check whether the variables a and b, which are on the right hand side of this expression. So you know a mathematical expression will have an assignment operator or equal to symbol like this. And on the left side of that you will have some operand, and on the right hand side also you will have some operands. So this is called as RHS, right hand side, and this is called as left hand side of the expression. So on the right hand side, whatever variables you have used in the expression, whether these variables are assigned some values like this 10 and 20 or not, it is going to check. So if the values are not assigned, then this is going to generate an error in your program. So A and B are not assigned any values. So this is a warning or error that is going to be generated when you compile this program. So that is why we, instead of writing this statement here before assigning the values for A and B, I have to write it here. Okay. Similarly, I cannot write this A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20 before this local declaration here. So this will generate a compilation error. Declaration is not allowed here. It cannot be declared in the third line. So if at all, if you are creating variables by declaring variables like this statement must be the first statement. It cannot be a second statement or a third statement inside the function. So this will generate an error. So you need to write it here, D. Then only it will be correct. Okay. So uh, simple thing. It is simple thing how to write statements in your C program means which one to write first, which one to write next. In a sequential order, you need to write. So when you are doing any general work, you know in which order to do that work, right? If you are given a small task of preparing a tea, for example, right? Tea prepare చేయమని నీకు ఎవరైనా చిన్న వర్క్ ఇచ్చారనుకో, right? So what you will do, you will have separate different small tasks that you need to do. First, you have to use the stove, right? Gas stove or any other stove. దాన్ని ఆర్డర్లో చేయాలి. మిల్క్ ఒక వెసల్లోకి తీసుకొని, then light the stove, pour the milk into that vessel, then add tea powder and sugar, right? And after you boil the milk for some time, then you have to filter that by using that what is the strain, right? So ఇవన్నీ స్టెప్ బై స్టెప్ ప్రాసెస్. ఏది ముందు చేయాలి ఏది తర్వాత చేయాలి అనేది మనం డిసైడ్ చేసుకోవాలి కదా. మనం వెసల్ని స్టవ్ మీద పెట్టి పాలు పోయొచ్చు, లేదంటే స్టవ్ మీద పెట్టకుండా పాలు పోస్తావా? ఏది ముందు చేయాలి ఏది తర్వాత చేయాలని నీకు తెలుస్తుంది, నీకు అర్థమవుతుంది కదా. The same way, if you use some common sense here when writing the program, you'll know when to write which statement. So we should, if you follow the program, if you understand what and if you know what purpose, for what purpose if you are writing a program, and how to write that program, how to store values in a variable and all. So by using some common sense, you'll know which to write first and which to write next. ఓకే. సో ఇప్పుడు ఇందాకే చెప్పే కదా, ఏ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు 10, బి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు 20 ముందు రాసిన తర్వాత దెన్ ఓన్లీ హౌ టు రైట్ సి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఏ. యూ కెనాట్ రైట్ సి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఏ ప్లస్ బి బిఫోర్ ఏ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు 10, బి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు 20, రైట్? సో this is how you write a program. So what is this program doing is, it is declaring three variables. Why I have to declare? It is rule that before you use any variables in your program, have to declare them either in the local declaration or in the global declaration, right? I am choosing to declare it in local declaration. What is the difference between global declaration and local declaration means? If you create a variable in the global declaration section, then that variable can be used in your entire program other than main function. If you create some other functions below this main function in subprogram section, in that function also that variable can be used if it is declared in global declaration section. But if the variable is declared in the local declaration section, then the scope of this variable will be limited only to this block. బ్లాక్ అంటే ఏంటి? ఈ బ్రేసెస్ ఓపెన్ చేసిన తర్వాత క్లోజ్ చేసిన మధ్యలో ఎనీవేర్ ఐ కెన్ యూజ్ దట్ వేరియబుల్, బట్ ఐ కెనాట్ యూజ్ బియాండ్ దిస్ బ్లాక్. ఈ బ్లాక్ బయటకు వెళ్తే నేను ఎక్కడ ఈ వేరియబుల్స్ ఏబిసిని యూజ్ చేయలేదు. ఇట్ ఈస్ జస్ట్ లైక్ పీపుల్, రైట్? సే ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, చీఫ్ మినిస్టర్ ఆఫ్ Telangana, he has a scope. He can order anyone in this state, but can he go and order any administrative people in another state like AP or Maharashtra or any other state? He cannot go and order, right? So his powers are confined only to this Telangana state. He cannot go to Maharashtra and ask the IAS people or any other chief secretary of Maharashtra and ask him to do something. He cannot give an order for him to do something. So he is confined only to Telangana state, right? So similarly, Prime Minister of India can only order or pass any orders for people in this country. He cannot go and pass orders for American president or somebody else. So just like they have scope within which they can use their power, the same way variables also will have access. So to declare the variables inside the main function or any other function in local declaration like this, then that variable can be used only within that main function. ఏ ఫంక్షన్లో అయితే మనం అది డిక్లేర్ చేసామో ఆ ఫంక్షన్ కెన్ యూజ్ ద యాక్సెస్ ద వేరియబుల్స్ వాల్యూ. దాన్ని బయటకు వెళ్ళి వేరే ఎక్కడన్నా దాని వాల్యూని యాక్సెస్ చేయాలని ట్రై చేస్తే యూ విల్ నాట్ బి ఏబుల్ టు డూ దట్, రైట్? సో దిస్ ఇస్ స్కోప్ ఆఫ్ వేరియబుల్స్. సో విల్ డిస్కస్ స్కోప్ లేటర్. అంటే ఇట్లాగా టాపిక్ వచ్చినప్పుడే కంబైన్ చేసి ఈ టాపిక్ చెప్తుంటాను. స్పెసిఫిక్గా మళ్ళీ స్కోప్ ఆఫ్ వేరియబుల్స్ అనేది సెపరేట్గా చెప్పను. సో నౌ దట్ యు అండర్స్టూడ్ declaring variables, coming to assigning values to these variables, you can do this assigning values to the variables in different ways, two different ways, right? I'll mention here variables once declared your program can be assigned values. First one is using assignment operator. Assignment operator అంటే mathematical equal to symbol. Programming లో దాన్ని assignment operator అంటారు. Call it as assignment operator. Coming to second way, using scanf function. Predefined scanf function is available pdio.h header. సో ఈ scanf అనే ఫంక్షన్ యూజ్ చేసి మనం వాల్యూని అసైన్ చేయొచ్చు వేరియబుల్కి. లేదు అంటే ఇట్లాగా అసైన్మెంట్ ఆపరేటర్ యూజ్ చేసి అసైన్ చేయొచ్చు. సో దేర్ ఆర్ టూ వేస్ విచ్ యూ కెన్ అసైన్ వాల్యూస్ టు ద వేరియబుల్స్ ఇన్ యువర్ ప్రోగ్రామ్. ఫస్ట్ వే ఈజ్ యూజింగ్ అసైన్మెంట్ ఆపరేటర్. Second way is using predefined function called scanf, which is available in stdio.h header. So in our example here, what is the way we have used? The first way we have used using assignment operator, right? Second variable is also assigned a value using the same first way. When to use this assignment operator and when to use the second way, that is using scanf. If you are going to change these values of a and b in your program frequently, always it is not suggested to use this first way, that is using assignment. It is better to take the value from the keyboard. Why? Because now if I want to calculate sum of 10 and 20, this program will work for me. But what if I want to calculate sum of 30 and 40? So then what I have to do is I have to edit this one and change to 30 this one to 40. And once I make a change to my program, I have to save that program once again, then compile the program once again, and then run the program. Then only these values will be changed from 10, 20 to 30, 40. ముందు 10, 20 ఇచ్చాక ఏబీకి అవి 30, 40కి చేంజ్ అవ్వాలంటే మనం ఏం చేయాలి? మళ్ళీ ప్రోగ్రామ్ని మళ్ళీ సేవ్ చేసుకొని కంపైల్ చేసి మళ్ళీ రన్ చేస్తే కానీ చేంజెస్ రిఫ్లెక్ట్ అవ్వవు. రైట్. సో when you want to give different values in different cases, always it is better to use scanf function, right? So first time when you execute the program, by using the scanf function you can assign 10, 20. Now you want to give 30, 40. You need not say modify the program. Instead of modifying the program, you will run the program once again and give 30 and 40 instead of 10 and 20. And simple guy, right? So that is the difference between using assignment operator and scanf function. If you are using assignment operator, every time you want to use different values for A and B variables, you have to edit the program, modify the program, and save the changes that you made to the program, then compile it again, and then run the program again. This is a tedious task. A long process is there for doing all these things. But if you use scanf function instead, what will happen? You need not edit the program and modify and save it again, compile it again, right? So directly you can run the program without compiling and without editing the program. Directly, if you can run the program, you can give a new different values 30, 40. Instead of assigning the values in the program directly, you are going to assign the values from the keyboard. కీబోర్డ్ నుంచి నీకు ఏ వాల్యూ కావాలంటే ఆ వాల్యూ ఎన్నిసార్లు కావాలంటే అన్నిసార్లు ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు ఇష్టం వచ్చిన, right? So that is the advantage using the second way. So but for initial learning purpose, I'm going to use this a is equal to 30, b is equal to 40 like this. ఎప్పుడైతే మనకి ప్రోగ్రామ్ రియల్ టైమ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ రాస్తాము, దట్ కేస్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు యూస్ scanf ఫంక్షన్. ఓకేనా? సో what we have done so far in our program is, because we want two variables to store 30 and 40 values and perform some operation between those two, addition operation between these two values, and store the result somewhere. We created three variables. We have declared them first. Then I have assigned 30 to A and 40 to B. And then I computed A plus B value and stored the result in C. So now, uh, how to display it on the screen? I have to display this output on the screen, right? Sum of A and B, sum of 30 and 40 is so and so. I have to display. Right? So to display, you have a predefined function called Printf function. Right? So let me put here scanf, or I'll write predefined function. Scanf is used to read. Read means what? Give input. Values keyboard time into variables program. Right? మన ప్రోగ్రామ్లో కీబోర్డ్ నుంచి వాల్యూస్ని తీసుకొని ఆ వాల్యూస్ని వేరియబుల్స్కి అసైన్ చేయడానికి what we need to do, we need to use a function called scanf. It is a predefined function. So I told you what is predefined function, what is user defined function earlier. So predefined function means the function will have three aspects, right? Function declaration, function definition, and function calling. So predefined functions definition and declaration will not be in our hands. It will be already done and they will be available in some header files in the library of C. Only thing what we need to do is we have to call them. Right? Out of those three aspects, we can perform only one aspect, that is invoking them or calling them. But if it is a user defined function, we need to do all the three aspects ourselves. We need to declare the function, we need to define the function, and we need to call the function ourselves in our program. So that is a user defined function. Main is also a user defined function, but there is an exception, as I told you yesterday, for main function, because this is the starting function which will be automatically invoked or called when you run your C program. దీన్ని మనం కాల్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు ఎక్స్ప్లిసిట్ గా ఆటోమేటిక్ గా దానికి అదే కాల్ అయిపోతుంది. మనం ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఎప్పుడైతే రన్ చేస్తామో రన్ చేయగానే ఆటోమేటిక్ గా ఈ ఫంక్షన్ కాల్ అవుతుంది. అందుకనే we need not call this function and we need not declare this function. We need only to define this function. So there is an exception only for this user defined function main. Main user defined or predefined and it is user defined. ఎందుకంటే దాని బాడీ దాని డెఫినేషన్ అంటే దాని బ్రేసెస్ లోపల రాసి కోడ్ని దాని డెఫినేషన్ అంటాం, బాడీ అంటాం. సో ఎవరు రాస్తున్నారు ఇది? హూ ఈస్ రైటింగ్ దిస్ బాడీ? హూ ఈస్ గివింగ్ ద బాడీ? User, the programmer himself at the time of writing program, he is defining what must be there in this main function as a definition or a body, right? So because we are defining, it is a user defined function. Already defined చేసి ఎక్కడ header file లో ఉంటే దాన్ని predefined function. So main does not have any definition already given in any header files. We are giving at the time of writing the program. So that is the reason why we call this main as a user defined function. But as I told you earlier, user defined functions have a rule that they must be declared, they must be defined, and they must be called. మిగతా అన్ని యూజర్ డిఫైన్ ఫంక్షన్ కి ఆ రూల్ అప్లై అవుతుంది, కానీ మెయిన్ ఫంక్షన్ కి ఒక్కదానికి మాత్రం ఎక్సెప్షన్. దాన్ని ఓన్లీ డిఫైన్ చేస్తే సరిపోతుంది. ఓకేనా? నౌ scanf ఫంక్షన్ దేనికి యూజ్ చేస్తాం? వాల్యూస్ ని రీడ్ చేయడానికి. అండ్ ఇన్పుట్ కీబోర్డ్ ద్వారా వాల్యూస్ రీడ్ చేసిన తర్వాత output device monitor మీద if you want to display something on the monitor or the output device, there must be some other function, there must be some other way, right? So that is nothing but predefined function printf. There is another predefined function printf is used output. Output అంటే ఏంటి? Display the monitor. Right? So మనకి ఏం కావాలి ఇప్పుడు? మనం ఆల్రెడీ ఫస్ట్ వే using this first way of assigning values to a variable, we have already assigned value. Instead of using scanf, we have done using this assignment operator, right? And we have computed the sum also. Now if you want to display it on the screen, sum calculate అయిన తర్వాత వాల్యూ డిస్ప్లే చేస్తాం, అంతేగాని ముందే వాల్యూ ఎట్లా డిస్ప్లే చేస్తాం? సో అందుకని దీని తర్వాత printf ఫంక్షన్ వస్తుంది. printf, right? printf ఫంక్షన్ ఎలా పనిచేస్తుంది అంటే, how it works means it takes as a parameter some string అంటే అప్పుడు ఎప్పుడు డబుల్ కోట్స్ లో ఇవ్వాలి. సో whatever you want to display on the screen, you type it as it is, right? So for example, I want to display sum of 30 and 40, right? Sum of 30 and 40 is, దానికి సమ్ ఎంత? 70 కదా. ఆ 70 అనేది ఎక్కడ స్టోర్ అయింది? వేర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ స్టోర్డ్ ఇన్ వేరియబుల్ సి. సో I need to mention 70 here, right? But if I write like this will display 30 and 40. తర్వాత if I change the value of a and b to some 40 and 50, then again I have to change this one, right? So instead of mentioning 30, C programming language provides you with something called format specifier. Format specifier. Format specifier అంటే ఏంటి అంటే, whenever you use this percentile d within the double quotes of either printf function or scanf function, when the program is executed, uh, this percentile d will be replaced with a value of a variable that is mentioned outside the double quote after a comma. నీకు ఇక్కడ ఇది 40 కూడా ఇంటీజరే కాబట్టి దీనికి కూడా ఫార్మాట్ స్పెసిఫైర్ percentile d uses. 70 is also an integer. So for this also I'll use percentile d format specifier. So how many format specifiers I have used? This is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So totally 3 format specifiers I have used. Right? So in place of this percentile d, I have to display the value of a, that is 30. So I have to specify after a comma, after the double quote symbol, the first percentile d corresponds to the value of variable a. Then second the b value, right? So after a, give one more comma and specify the second variable b. Then give one more comma because one more percentile d here. So this percentile d corresponds to value of c. So after comma here, give c here. ఈ పర్సెంటైల్ డీల్ ఏదైతే ఆర్డర్లో నువ్వు స్పెసిఫై చేస్తున్నావో వీటిని, so in the same order you write them here, a comma b comma c. After double quote is closed, give a comma, then mention the variable names. After the last variable name is used, you need not give a comma there. ఓకేనా? ఇప్పుడు ఇది ఏం డిస్ప్లే చేస్తుంది అంటే సమ్ ఆఫ్ అని యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ గా స్క్రీన్ మీద డిస్ప్లే అయిపోతుంది, రైట్? బట్ ఈ పర్సెంటైల్ డి అనే చోట మాత్రం దిస్ విల్ బి రీప్లేస్డ్ విత్ ద వాల్యూ ఆఫ్ ఏ. సో వాట్ ఈస్ ద వాల్యూ ఆఫ్ ఏ? 30. సో దిస్ విల్ బి రీప్లేస్డ్ విత్ 30. And again one more percentile d. So and will be displayed as it is, sum of 30 and మళ్ళీ ఇక్కడ percentile d. What is this percentile d? This is corresponding to b. So what is the value of b? 40. So this percentile d will be replaced with 40. is as it is గా డిస్ప్లే అయిపోతుంది. ఓన్లీ ఫార్మాట్ స్పెసిఫైర్స్ ఎక్కడైతే ఉన్నాయో అవి మాత్రమే డిఫరెంట్ గా డిస్ప్లే అవుతాయి. మిగతా టెక్స్ట్ ఏదైనా ఇస్తే మనం ఇలాగా ఇంగ్లీష్ వర్డ్స్ యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ దే విల్ బి టైప్డ్ ఆన్ ద స్క్రీన్. సమ్ ఆఫ్ అంటే సమ్ ఆఫ్, అండ్ అంటే అండ్, ఈజ్ అంటే ఈజ్, రైట్? స్పేస్ ఇస్తే రెండు వర్డ్స్ మధ్య ఆ స్పేస్ యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ గా డిస్ప్లే అవుతుంది. స్పేస్ ఇవ్వకపోతే స్పేస్ రాదు, స్పేస్ ఇస్తే స్పేస్ వస్తుంది. బట్ వెన్ ఎవర్ యూ కమ్ అక్రాస్ దిస్ ఫార్మాట్ స్పెసిఫైర్స్ లైక్ పర్సెంటైల్ డి, పర్సెంటైల్ సి, పర్సెంటైల్ ఎఫ్, పర్సెంటైల్ ఎల్డి, రైట్? సో ఇట్లా యూజ్ చేసినప్పుడు అవి మాత్రం దే ఆర్ కరెస్పాండింగ్ టు ఎ పర్టికులర్ వేరియబుల్స్ వాల్యూ. సో ఆ టైప్ ఆఫ్ వేరియబుల్ ఇవ్వాలి. ఇది పర్సెంటైల్ డి అంటే ఇంటీజర్, సో ఏ మస్ట్ బి అన్ ఇంటీజర్ వేరియబుల్. దీని బదులు ఇక్కడ ఒక ఫ్లోటింగ్ పాయింట్ వేరియబుల్ నేమ్ ఇచ్చాము, ఎర్రర్ జనరేట్ చేస్తుంది, జనరేట్ అన్ ఎర్రర్. ఓకే, సో percentile d, this is substituted or replaced with 30, and this percentile d is replaced with 40. The last percentile d is replaced with the value of c. c లో ఏముంటుంది? 30 40 యాడ్ చేసి c లో స్టోర్ చేసాం కాబట్టి 70 రీప్లేస్ అవుతుంది. సో ద అవుట్పుట్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ విల్ బి sum of 30 and 40 is 70. So this will be the output. Okay, so this is how you need to write a program, a simple program. చిన్న sum of two numbers find out చేయడానికి రాసే ప్రోగ్రామ్ ఇలా రాయాలి. So you know what is the purpose of printf function, right? So ఇప్పుడు now instead of using this assignment operator to assign values to a and b like this, ఇలా ఇవ్వకుండా నేను ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ సెకండ్ వే scanf ఫంక్షన్ యూజ్ చేసి రీడ్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాను. సో scanf ఫంక్షన్ అనేది printf ఫంక్షన్ అనేది ఈ రెండు కూడా మనకి ప్రీడిఫైన్డ్ ఫంక్షన్స్. సో ప్రీడిఫైన్డ్ ఫంక్షన్ కాబట్టి మనం ఏం చేయాలి? ప్రీడిఫైన్డ్ ఫంక్షన్స్ ని we have to establish a link to the header file which contains those predefined function. సో అది ఎక్కడ చేయాలి? డెఫినేషన్ లింక్ సెక్షన్ లో. సో లింక్ సెక్షన్ ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది? ఫస్ట్ గ్లోబల్ డిక్లరేషన్ ఉంటుంది. మనం గ్లోబల్ డిక్లరేషన్ సెక్షన్ ఫస్ట్ డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ సెక్షన్ ఉంటుంది. సో వీఆర్ నాట్ యూజింగ్ డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ సెక్షన్. సో ఆఫ్టర్ డాక్యుమెంటేషన్ సెక్షన్ వాట్ విల్ బి దేర్? లింక్ సెక్షన్. సో లింక్ సెక్షన్ తర్వాత డెఫినేషన్ సెక్షన్, మనం అది యూజ్ చేయట్లేదు. గ్లోబల్ డిక్లరేషన్ కూడా యూజ్ చేయట్లేదు. సో ఎక్కడ ఉంటుంది? ఇమీడియట్ గా వాయిడ్ మెయిన్ పైన #include stdio.h, రైట్? ఈ స్టేట్మెంట్ రాస్తాం. దీంట్లో ఈ ప్రింట్ఎఫ్ స్కాన్ఎఫ్ ఫంక్షన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. మనం ప్రోగ్రామ్ లో యూజ్ చేయాలంటే ఈ కంపల్సరీగా ఈ స్టేట్మెంట్ రాయాలి, రైట్? సో నౌ వేరియబుల్ డిక్లరేషన్ అయిన తర్వాత నేను ఏం చేయాలంటే ఈ ప్రోగ్రామ్ రన్ చేయగానే ప్రోగ్రామ్ నీకు 2 వాల్యూస్ ని కీబోర్డ్ ద్వారా తీసుకోవాలి. has to take as input two integer values from the keyboard. For that, what I have to do, scanf అనే function use. సో దీనికి కూడా parentheses లో డబుల్ కోట్స్ లో ఇవ్వాలి. అండ్ ఏ టైప్ ఆఫ్ వాల్యూస్ రీడ్ చేసుకుంటున్నాం, ఇంటీజర్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ వాల్యూస్. ఎన్ని వాల్యూస్ రీడ్ చేసుకుంటున్నాం, 2 values. Right? You are trying to receive as input 2 different values, and what type of values are they? Are integer type of values. So you have to specify the format specifier for that integer data type. So for every data type in your C programming language, to read it from the keyboard or to display it on the screen, you have something called format specifiers. Already we discussed about that format specifier %d in printf function here. So the same format specifier must even be used in scanf function also while reading it from the keyboard. So ఎన్ని వాల్యూస్ తీసుకుంటున్నావో అన్నిసార్లు ఆ ఫార్మాట్ స్పెసిఫైర్ తీసుకోవాలి. ఫస్ట్ వాల్యూ is an integer, so use %d. Second value is also an integer, so again one more %d. There must not be any space between these two format specifiers. Without any gap, without using any other symbols, directly you have to mention these format specifiers one after the other. Any format specifiers ఉంటే అన్నిటిని కలిపి together we call it as format string. Okay. So after writing this in the scanf, after double quote is closed, give a comma. Here, where you want to store this %d, that is the first integer value that you're going to read, in which variable you want to store. Say you want to store it in a. So then you have to mention that variable a. And before that variable a, you must give ampersand symbol. Ampersand is nothing but called as a address of operator. అంటే ఈ a అనే వేరియబుల్ కి ఒక అడ్రస్ ఉంటుంది, మెమరీ లొకేషన్ యొక్క అడ్రస్. సో the value that you read from the keyboard for variable a will be stored into that address location, right? Then here ampersand b, second value ni ampersand b అని ఇవ్వాలి. printf లో మనం ampersand ఆపరేటర్ యూజ్ చేయాలి. ఇక్కడ scanf లో మాత్రమే యూజ్ చేస్తాం. we will be using it only in the scanf function. We don't use it in printf function. Why? Because printf function knows the values of these variables. They are already stored in this variable a. They are available already in a. But when using scanf function, we are now for the first time storing the values in this variables a. Already a లో వేరియబుల్ వాల్యూస్ లేవు, ఎంటీగా ఉన్నాయి. సో వాటిలో స్టోర్ చేయాలి, కంప్యూటర్ మెమరీలో స్టోర్ చేయాలి, రైట్? బట్ ఇక్కడ ప్రింట్ఎఫ్ ఫంక్షన్ ఏం చేస్తుంది, మెమరీలో స్టోర్ చేయట్లేదు. ఆల్రెడీ ఉన్న వాల్యూస్ మెమరీలోంచి తీసుకొచ్చి మానిటర్ అవుట్పుట్ డివైస్ మీద డిస్ప్లే చేస్తుంది. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద రీజన్ వీ డోంట్ స్పెసిఫై అడ్రస్ ఆఫ్ ఆపరేటర్ హియర్. బట్ స్కాన్ఎఫ్ అనేది ఏం చేస్తుంది, కీబోర్డ్ నుంచి తీసుకొని కంప్యూటర్ మెమరీలో స్టోర్ చేస్తుంది. సో వెన్ వి డిక్లేర్ వేరియబుల్స్ ఇన్ యువర్ ప్రోగ్రామ్, those variables will be when your program is compiled, each of that variable will be allocated with whatever size uh, that is required for that variable. Integer కాబట్టి 2 bytes, right? A కి 2 bytes, B కి 2 bytes, C కి 2 bytes memory will be allocated in the memory. So మరి ఆ 2 bytes of memory ఎక్కడ allocate అయింది, at a particular location ఉంటుంది, దానికి ఒక అడ్రస్ ఉంటుంది. So that address we need to know. So how to obtain that address means, in front of that variable name, if you use this operator ampersand, automatically this will give you the address of that variable in the computer's memory. So where to store this first value, we have to store that value in a variable, but that variable a has some address in the computer's memory. So we need to specify that address of that variable a, right? Similarly for second value, address of that second variable b. Like a scanf function లో మాత్రమే ampersand operator యూజ్ చేయాలి. So now after reading this one, then you will compute this one and then print using this printf function. ఇవన్నీ ఆర్డర్ ఇట్లాగా ఉండాలి. ఈ scanf తర్వాత రాస్తానంటే కుదరదు, ఎందుకంటే ఈ scanf ఇది కంప్లీట్ అయితేనే దాంట్లో ఏ బిలో వేరియబుల్స్ వాల్యూస్ ఉంటాయి. Then only you can compute sum. Then after computing sum, then only you can print the sum of the two values, కదా? But before this scanf statement, you must have observed we'll be writing one more printf statement, right? So you have to use a semicolon at the end of every statement. అది గుర్తుపెట్టుకో, మర్చిపోవద్దు. ఇక్కడ printf ఎందుకు ఇస్తామంటే when you run the program, కర్సర్ స్క్రీన్ మీద బ్లింక్ అవుతూ ఉంటుంది. కర్సర్ విల్ బి బ్లింకింగ్ ఆన్ ద స్క్రీన్, but the user will not understand what to do, why it is blinking. So if you communicate with him by displaying a message like this, enter two values, enter two integers. ఒక మెసేజ్ ఇస్తే then the user will understand, oh, I have to give some input from the keyboard, right? So రాస్తే అప్పుడు మెసేజ్ ఫస్ట్ డిస్ప్లే అవుతుంది. ఆ మెసేజ్ డిస్ప్లే అయిన తర్వాత then the user will understand that he has to enter two integer values. And when giving the integer values as input to your program, after giving the first value, either you strike the enter key or give some స్పేస్ ఇచ్చి సెకండ్ వాల్యూ అని ఇచ్చుకోవాలి. స్పేస్ ఇచ్చి ఒకటే లైన్లో రెండు వాల్యూస్ ఇచ్చుకోవచ్చు, లేదంటే ఒక వాల్యూ ఎంటర్ చేసిన తర్వాత ఎంటర్ కీ కొట్టి నెక్స్ట్ లైన్లో ఇంకో వాల్యూ ఇచ్చుకోవాలి, రైట్? సో బై డిఫాల్ట్ when you give the enter, the value that you have typed on the monitor on the screen will be stored into that variable. If you don't strike the enter key, ఆ ఇన్పుట్ ఏదైతే వాల్యూ ఇచ్చావో అది కీబోర్డ్ నుంచి మెమరీలో స్టోర్ అవ్వదు. ఎంటర్ కి కంపల్సరీ కొట్టాల్సిందే, రైట్? సో దిస్ ఈస్ హౌ యూ రైట్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ in C language, a simple program. So if you understand this one, then we can start writing the programs without discussing all these things again further in the detailed discussion. You can start writing some little bit more complex programs from tomorrow on. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask now, or else we can wind up today's session. You can text me.